Stop right there. Whatever you are carrying in your mind while you hear this, put it down for a moment and come fully into this message. Something has happened around you that people may not see yet, but you have felt it in your chest, in your sleep, in the way certain conversations no longer sound alive. You have been holding a pain so quietly that even the people who love you may have missed it. You have been acting normal, while something in you has been standing at a distance, watching the old story collapse, watching a door that once felt certain begin to close, and watching yourself wonder why the person who betrayed you seems to be living as though nothing is falling apart. That is why you need to stay with me. By the end of this, you are going to recognize the signs that have been following you. You are going to understand the pattern beneath those signs, and you are going to hear why this betrayal was never the final word over your life. Stay with me, because this is not just a message about what they did. It is a message about what has already begun to happen to them and what is now being restored in you. By the time we close, you are going to see why your body has been feeling the way it has, why certain memories keep rising without permission, and why the silence around you has not been empty at all. You are going to understand why the betrayal exposed something deeper than loss. You're going to recognize that what looked like a collapse was actually a separation, and what looked like delay was actually a clearing. And before this ends, there is a declaration I will speak over you that will seal what your spirit already knows. This message reached you by appointment, not by accident, not by chance, not because you happened to scroll at the right second, but because there are moments when heaven does not shout. It arrives. It arrives when you are tired enough to stop pretending. It arrives when your heart has finally become quiet enough to hear what has been true all along. And tonight, you are hearing it in the exact hour you needed it. Something has been happening to you for some time now. It may have started as a small unease, then grew into the strange certainty that the world around you had not changed as much as your inner world had. You kept moving, kept answering messages, kept showing attention. You need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you. And strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. But somewhere inside, you knew you were no longer inside the same season. You have been waking at odd hours, and it is not random. You open your eyes in the dark, and your mind goes straight to the person who betrayed you, not because you want them, but because your spirit is trying to finish a sentence your heart did not know how to end. The hour itself feels charged, as if something invisible taps the glass of your night and says, "Look again." You have also felt emotional waves that seem to come from nowhere. One moment you are composed, and the next you are standing in the middle of an ordinary day with a heaviness you cannot explain. It does not always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like sudden stillness. Sometimes it looks like irritation. Sometimes it looks like a deep, wordless fatigue that comes after you remember how much you carried while someone else moved with no regard for your weight. And there is more. Conversations that used to feel normal now feel hollow. You can hear the old words, but you cannot return to the old trust. The tone is still familiar, yet the meaning has gone thin. You are not imagining that. You are not becoming cold. You are hearing truth more clearly than before, and truth always changes the sound of everything else. You may also be noticing repeated numbers, repeated references, repeated little interruptions that seem to arrive from different places with the same quiet insistence. A receipt, a clock, a license plate, a page number, a random line in a song. It is as if reality has started tapping the same rhythm until you finally stop and listen. These are not problems. These are confirmations. The waking hour is not punishment, it is invitation. The emotional waves are not weakness, they are release. The hollow conversations are not your imagination. They are evidence that what once held your attention no longer holds your spirit. The repeated signs are not chaos. They are alignment gathering itself around you. Take a breath with me. Let that settle into the part of you that has been carrying too much for too long. If even one of those signs just landed in you, if your shoulders dropped at any point in the last few minutes, type the number 888 in the comments. That is the number of overflow, and your fingers writing it are a small agreement that you are no longer pretending not to know what you know. Type 888, then come right back to me. But there is something beneath these signs. Beneath those signs is one single pattern, and once you see it, you will stop accusing yourself of being too sensitive, too emotional, too slow, or too late. The pattern is this. You have been trying to make peace with what was never built to hold truth. You have been reaching for stability in a structure that survived on concealment. You have been offering loyalty into a space that kept changing its shape whenever honesty came close. This is why the betrayal cut so deeply, not only because someone broke trust, but because part of you had been standing in a place that required you to keep believing in what was already weakening. You were not just loving a person. You were holding together a version of reality that depended on your hope. And that pattern has shown up in other places too. It has shown up when you over-explained yourself to people who had already decided not to understand. It has shown up when you stayed too long in conversations where your peace kept shrinking. It has shown up when you kept trying one more time, one more message, one more explanation, one more prayer, as though enough effort could revive what had already left. You have mistaken endurance for obligation. You have mistaken silence for patience. You have mistaken strain for faithfulness, and because your heart is sincere, you have sometimes called your own depletion by noble names. But I need you to hear this plainly. You were not weak. You were loyal in a place where loyalty was being consumed. You were not foolish. You were trusting in a moment when trust was being tested beyond its purpose. You were not blind. You were loving before the full shape of the thing was revealed. And that is why this pattern has cost you so much. It has taken energy from your sleep. It has taken softness from your mind. It has taken attention from your body. It has made you feel as though you were always one step behind the truth, when in reality you were often the first one to sense it and the last one to be allowed to name it. There is a quiet ache that comes from carrying a truth too long in the dark. It makes you tired in places sleep cannot reach. It makes you cautious in rooms that used to feel easy. It makes you wonder whether your sensitivity is the problem, when in truth, your sensitivity is what saved you from becoming numb. Stay with me, because there is a layer beneath this one. Imagine a courtyard hidden behind a house no one invited you into. The stones are old, the walls are high. The light enters only at certain hours, and for a long time you stood outside that courtyard thinking it was closed because you were not worthy of entering. But it was never closed because of your worth. It was closed because something in that place had been shaped by survival, not by openness. Now imagine that long ago, someone placed a heavy cover over the well in that courtyard, not because the water was not there, but because the fear of losing it felt stronger than the courage to let it flow. So the courtyard learned to stay guarded. The air learned to stay controlled. The doors learned to open only halfway, and anyone who came near could feel the stillness, even if they could not explain it. That is the older formation beneath the pattern. Something in you was taught to hold itself in. Something in you learned that love must be managed, not trusted. Something in you learned that if you loosened your grip, the whole structure might come apart. So you became careful, you became watchful, you became the one who could sense the shift before everyone else, the one who could feel the temperature change in a room before a word was spoken. This is not your defect. This is the history of the courtyard, and the betrayal you are grieving did not create that history. It exposed it. It touched the cover over the well. It rattled the old gate. It made the hidden architecture visible. That is why the pain feels larger than the event itself. You are not only grieving the person, you are grieving the whole way your heart was trained to hold water behind a wall. You were asked in some quiet and costly way to become the guardian of what should have been allowed to live freely. You were taught to keep watch where you should have been rested. You were taught to remain poised where you should have been safe. And in that place, your own voice learned to lower itself so the courtyard could stay calm. But the courtyard is changing now. The cover is loosening. The stone is warming. The air is moving again. What was sealed in fear is beginning to respond to light. What was held in control is beginning to remember it was made for living water, not storage. And that is why your spirit has been restless. It is not because something is wrong with you. It is because the hidden place inside you is no longer content to remain locked around old survival. If something inside you can feel that courtyard beginning to open, if the image of the hidden place and the covered well has landed in a part of you that you cannot fully explain, type the words, "I see it," in the comments. Let that recognition seal where it just landed. Type it, then come right back to me, because what happens next is the return. The return is not you becoming someone else. The return is you stepping back into the part of yourself that was never meant to live behind a cover. The return is not strain. The return is release. You do not have to invent worth, prove worth, chase worth, or perform worth. Worth is not a prize you earn after enough pain. Worth is the ground you stand on when the old structure stops asking you to kneel before it. What you are returning to is not urgency, but clarity. Not chasing, but receiving. Not forcing the door, but noticing that the door that matters has already begun to open from the inside. What you are returning to is the voice that no longer needs to whisper just to be safe. What you are returning to is the steadiness that does not depend on someone else's honesty to exist. And there are two simple ways to tend this return. The first is what I call the morning seal. Before the noise of the day gathers itself around you, place your hand over your chest and say quietly, "I do not return to the old cover. I return to what is open, true, and mine." Do not say it to perform. Say it to remember. You are not trying to force a feeling. You are teaching your spirit where home is now. The second is what I call the frequency audit. When a person, a memory, or a conversation leaves you shrinking, drained, or split from yourself, name it honestly and stop calling it harmless. Not everything that is familiar is faithful. Not everything that is comfortable is clean. Some things feel normal only because you have lived beside them for too long. This is not a command to harden. It is an invitation to steward your peace with reverence. You do not need to chase the one who betrayed you in order to recover your life. You do not need to rehearse the wound until it becomes your identity. You do not need to build your future out of reaction. The return is quieter than that. The return is the moment you stop bowing to the cover and begin honoring the spring underneath it. And once you begin to tend that return, you notice something else. You stop confusing attention with devotion. You stop confusing intensity with truth. You stop confusing chaos with connection. You begin to recognize what is aligned because it does not ask you to abandon yourself in order to remain close. If this message has confirmed what your spirit already knew, let your like be your amen without words, not as a metric, as an agreement that what was named here was named correctly. Sit with that for a moment. Let it rest in you before you move on. There is often a quiet tremor right before recognition becomes permanent, and you deserve to feel that settle instead of rushing past it. There is someone coming to mind right now, and you know the face before I finish the sentence. They are the one who looks strong but is quietly tired. They are the one who keeps their pain polished so no one has to ask questions. They are the one who has been holding a posture nobody sees, carrying responsibility, disappointment, and hope in the same hands. There is also another face for some of you. Someone who is always the listener, always the fixer, always the calm presence, but whose own private world is full of questions they have not spoken aloud. Someone who looks fine from a distance, but has been living with a fracture inside the place no one thinks to inspect. And for others, the face is the one who betrayed you, not because you should return to them, but because your heart is still trying to understand how pain and familiarity can wear the same face. Whoever it is, the reason they came to mind is not random. It is because this message is meant to move beyond you and into the place where another person is still standing in silence. Send this to them, not as a suggestion, not as content, as a delivery. The same way it reached you by appointment, let it reach the one who needs to hear that betrayal is not the end of their story, and that the collapse they feel may actually be the beginning of their return. Before this closes, type the words "I am chosen" in the comments, not as a wish, not as a hope, as a confirmation. Let your fingers say what your spirit is already beginning to live. The agreement that has been forming across these minutes is not fragile. It is becoming part of your record. Type it slowly. Come back to me. You are confirmed. You are covered. You are being gathered. You are not abandoned in the place where the old structure broke. You are not overlooked in the hour when truth became unavoidable. You are not too late, and you are not too far gone. What was hidden is coming into view, and what was draining you is losing its claim. You are learning to stand without begging. You are learning to listen without fear. You are learning to belong to what is true. Right now, all across the world, there are hearts receiving the same recognition tonight. Some are waking in silence. Some are releasing tears they did not plan to shed. Some are finally admitting that the betrayal they survived was also the moment their life began to turn. You are part of that unseen gathering. You are not alone in this hearing. And what is being spoken over you now is being spoken with you, around you, and into you. It is sealed. You are still standing here because the work is not finished in the part of you that knows when truth has arrived. What has already been spoken over you is not fading, and the silence that follows it is not emptiness. It is the place where your spirit is finally able to hear itself without interruption. Do not rush past this moment. There are words that land, and there are words that settle. This one settles. It goes deeper than the sound of it. It moves past the mind that wants proof and into the place that has been waiting for permission to believe that betrayal was never your name, never your identity, never your inheritance. You were not marked by what they did. You were revealed by it. The betrayal did not create your value, and it cannot erase it. The collapse did not invent your strength, and it cannot take it back. What has been broken around you has only made visible what was always already true. You were carrying more than should have been asked of you, and yet even there you did not stop becoming who you were made to be. There is a tenderness in this kind of ending, because it is not really an ending at all. It is the closing of one form of waiting. It is the final letting go of the version of you that thought pain must be endured forever to be meaningful. It is the release of the old belief that if you had only loved harder, tried longer, or stayed quieter, the wound would have become a blessing without cost. No, it would only have become deeper. What is happening now is different. This is the moment when your inner life stops pleading with the past to explain itself. This is the moment when the wound loses authority over the direction of your steps. This is the moment when you begin to recognize that the hand that betrayed you was never the hand that held your future, no matter how long it stayed near you. And because this is true, you no longer have to negotiate with what has already been shown. You no longer need to argue with the evidence your own body has been carrying. You know the shift. You felt it before you could name it. You sensed the distance growing before the final proof arrived. You knew when the air changed in the room. You knew when the tone changed. You knew when the warmth became calculation. You knew, and your knowing was never the problem. Your knowing was the mercy. Your knowing was the alarm that kept you from confusing performance with devotion. Your knowing was the quiet gift that would not let you disappear completely inside the lie. So let this be the place where you honor it. Let this be the place where you stop apologizing for sensing what others preferred to ignore. Let this be the place where you stop shrinking the intelligence of your spirit just to keep peace with the people who benefited from your silence. The loss you felt was real, the grief is real, the disappointment is real, but none of those things are stronger than the life that is still moving through you right now. None of them are stronger than the part of you that has survived the exposure, survived the confusion, survived the ache of realizing that the person you trusted was not who they presented themselves to be. That realization can feel like a door slamming, but it can also feel like air returning to a room that had grown stale. And this is why you must not mistake the pain of clarity for punishment. Clarity often hurts before it heals. It can feel severe at first because it strips away the soft illusion that let you sleep. But once it speaks, you no longer have to spend your life guarding what was never stable enough to protect you. The truth may have arrived late in your timeline, but it did not arrive too late for your life. There is still a path ahead of you that is not built on suspicion, not built on chasing, not built on trying to keep pace with those who move without integrity. There is still a path ahead of you that asks for nothing more than honesty, steadiness, and the courage to remain where your peace is not treated as optional. You do not need to become hard in order to become safe. You do not need to close your heart forever just because one person used access to wound you. You do not need to swear off tenderness just because tenderness was mishandled. What you need is discernment. What you need is grounding. What you need is the calm authority that comes when your spirit no longer asks strangers to define your worth. There is a kind of strength that does not shout. It simply stays true. There is a kind of recovery that does not announce itself. It begins when you stop reaching for what keeps receding. There is a kind of peace that does not come from being left alone. It comes from being with yourself without betrayal inside the room. And that peace is already rising in you even now. You may notice that certain names no longer carry the same power. You may notice that the memory no longer sits in the center of your chest like it used to. You may notice that you are able to breathe a little deeper when you think about the future, because the future is no longer being measured by the behavior of the one who failed you. That is not forgetting. That is release. Release is not pretending it never happened. Release is remembering what happened without consenting to be ruled by it. Release is letting the truth remain true without letting the wound remain in charge. This is why your next steps do not need to be dramatic to be holy. You do not need a spectacle to prove that you have moved on. You do not need to announce your healing to people who have not earned your inner life. You only need to remain faithful to the small, quiet choices that tell your soul you are no longer available for what diminishes you. Say less where your words have been wasted. Stay still where your peace has been rushed. Choose what is honest, even when it is less familiar. That is how return continues, not in one huge moment, but in 1,000 gentle refusals to go back to what broke you. And when doubt comes back, because it sometimes will, do not be ashamed of that either. Doubt is not always disbelief. Sometimes it is only the echo of an old wound, checking to see whether you will hand over your authority again. In that moment, do not argue with the echo. Simply remain. Remain in the truth you have already seen. Remain in the dignity that has already returned to your breath. Remain in the quiet certainty that you are allowed to move forward without asking permission from the past. You are not becoming someone new by force. You are uncovering someone true by release. You are not chasing a future. You are entering one. You are not begging to be chosen. You are standing inside the reality that you already are. And as this settles in you, let the last edge of the old story loosen. Let the resentment loosen. Let the fear loosen. Let the need to prove that the betrayal hurt loosen. It did hurt. It mattered. It shaped a season of your life. But it does not get to shape the final identity that rises from that season. You are still here. You are still breathing. You are still becoming. That is enough to tell the truth about what could not finish you. There will be days when the memory returns with less force, and days when it tries to speak louder than your peace. On those days, remember that healing is not measured by whether the memory exists. It is measured by whether the memory governs your hand, your mouth, your posture, your hope. And over time it will not govern as it did before, not because you forced it away, but because your inner life matured beyond its reach. That maturity is already forming. You can feel it in the way your spirit no longer entertains every old excuse. You can feel it in the way you no longer accept confusion as connection. You can feel it in the way your body tenses less when truth is near. You can feel it in the way your silence has changed from suppression into discernment. That is not small, that is sacred. So take this with you. The one who betrayed you may have touched a moment, but they did not touch your purpose. They may have interrupted a season, but they did not cancel your becoming. They may have exposed a fracture, but they did not define the shape of your future. Your life is not a ruin story. It is a return story, and return stories are never written by the ones who tried to end them. They are written by the ones who lived through the ending and kept listening for the next true sound. You are hearing that sound now. You are not behind. You are not abandoned. You are not emptied. You are being restored in the exact place where the betrayal once tried to name you. Rest here for a moment. Let the quiet do its work. Let the truth stand where the lie once stood. Let your heart remember that it was never created to remain in the shadow of what harmed it. You are moving toward a gentler authority now, a calm authority, a rooted authority, the kind that does not need to explain itself to deserve its place, the kind that speaks once and then lives accordingly, the kind that does not chase what is leaving, the kind that does not beg what is unwilling, the kind that can receive love without suspicion because it has learned the difference between presence and pretense. That is where you are headed. That is what is opening. That is what has already begun. So breathe slowly, unclench what you have been holding, let the old tension leave your shoulders, let the old questions lose their grip for a while. You do not need to solve everything tonight. You only need to keep telling the truth to the part of yourself that still wonders whether this pain will be the last word. It will not be the last word. It is only the word before the threshold. You are crossing it now. You are crossing it in the quiet. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you. And strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.